So, I always think of your name like Ed Boon, you know, every time. It's not like, oh, I'm here with Ed Boon. No, it's like Ed Boon. And I think that's because you're such a presence in the video game industry and you're celebrating 25 years now. Yeah.
I have an easy last name to yell. I think some people here call me Ed Boom with an M. Just because they like to yell it, you know. But yeah, I guess I feel fortunate, 25 years, starting a game and it's still going on to this day is pretty special.
I would imagine that you never, of course, if any artist think that the project's going to die a lonely death. So when was the first time that you said, maybe I've got a hit here on this Mortal Kombat thing?
I think when we first put the big arcade cabinet in an arcade for like a weekend test, and we saw, a crowd of people surrounding it and reacting and jumping around, we knew that there was something, something special. We would have never guessed that they're going to make the home games and a movie and TV shows and all that crazy stuff. But the first moment, like to what you asked, is when we saw people crowded around an arcade machine, all like looking, over everybody's shoulder. That was the moment for me.
You started playing on arcade, right? Very action-focused kind of games. And I think if you look at the video game history, fighting is kind of an action game. So it's something that it's within you, like it's part of your soul, and that's why you do what you do.
Yeah, there's something so simple about a fighting game. Me versus you, who's gonna win? There's no. It's not like a MOBA or something like that where there's a million things going on at once. And I think that's one of the reasons why some people play it is because it's so simple, yet there's complexity to it. There's button combinations to remember and all that stuff like that, and I think that's what's special about a fighting game.
Imagine that you're going to have like championships.
No, when we first made the game, we just wanted to finish it. We just wanted to, hope that people would like it. And, I don't think the first game there was as much of a real competitive sport thing. Everybody was just so shocked to see, blood and fatalities and oh my God, it wasn't until that kind of died down that people started really playing it competitively. And we would see tournaments in arcades. And now it's, people can play online in tournaments and you can play, you can win $100,000 just from winning a tournament. So it's a lot bigger of a scene now.
I know everybody asks you that, but I have to, because it's my first time interviewing you. So let's talk about the blood. Because the blood was, I'm sorry, fucking awesome, The first time you could put the code and there was blood, I said, this is like real, man. People are bleeding and dying. Why did you think like, let's put a little bit of blood, like hidden and see the impact? Yeah,
I think the thing that people forget was when we made the first Mortal Kombat, we were 4 guys in our 20s, and we were big fans of action movies, Bloodsport, Terminator, Enter the Dragon, Star Wars, all these crazy things. So we were just making what we thought would be cool. And so when you punch somebody, oh, let's make blood appear. And that's what, so again, it was just a bunch of 20-something-year-old guys making a video game that they thought would be cool. And, that's just what happened. Yeah.
I think it has a kind of a strong sense of like B-movies, gore. At the time, that was really gory. Yeah. Like today, it's just blood. Yeah. But at the time, it was like, oh my God, this is really gory. Are you a fan of like B-movies?
Not as much as, but at the time also, Mortal Kombat was the first game, or one of the first games that had digitized graphics. We would videotape real people punching, kicking, doing all these things, and so there was a sense of realism to it. And like you said, it felt like a movie. It felt like a, there was a realness to it. So all of a sudden, when you added blood, that just raised the the realness of it. And you're like, oh my God, this game is crazy, so.
Often with in the beginning of the video game industry, it was the flaws or the problems that made something great. Like with Prince of Persia also, they have to film it because they could not animate it. What do you think was the greatest problem that you had that made a creative solution that became Mortal Kombat?
The first one was when we wanted to have Van Damme. We wanted to make Van Damme the video game, and it was going to star Jean-Claude Van Damme, and that was like the goal. And that didn't happen, which forced us to come up with our own characters, and that was, I think, was the best thing that could have happened to us. That was something where we thought it was a setback, but it ended up being, probably the thing that launched us to be, a game that can survive 25 years.
And what's the best mechanic, and why did you choose fatality?
Fatalities was something from, I'm a big fan of Street Fighter, and there was a thing in Street Fighter where you can, you beat the crap out of somebody, and then they get dizzy, and then you get to hit them again. And I loved being the guy who was, doing all the hitting, and then you get the free hit. But we hated being the guy who was, who got dizzy. So we just moved that whole dizzy stuff to the end of the fight after it was already determined who won, and we let the winner do the last hit, and normally it was an uppercut or something like that. And after we were playing it for a while, we said, wouldn't it be cool to do something else to them? And that's kind of where fatalities were born.
Because you have some weight to the characters, because you can, even with Injustice, you can break the bones, and there's some weight that you don't have in other franchises, I think, and that's the weight of the fatalities. So do you think it's like more of a heavy kind of fighting game? And
it's like a celebration too, like you put an exclamation point on your victory, you really get to kind of rub it in your opponent's face, and you feel like, like you're just the best player, so.
And you were talking about creating your own characters. The masks were to conceal the real identities of the characters?
Say that again?
Like the mask for Scorpion, or were they used to conceal your true identity?
Yeah. Well, we wanted to have an element of mystery. Who's behind the mask? Who is that? What's their story? And I think that was a lot of, because Mortal Kombat, we also wrote backstories for all the characters. He was from here, and he's from Hollywood, and he's from Hong Kong, and all that, and that made the characters a little bit more interesting, and the mask made them a little bit more mysterious.
And after that, you took Injustice, which I think it's a very great translation, not only in terms of mechanic, but in terms of story. So I think maybe your view and seeing games as both begin with Mortal Kombat, and you can fully use that also in Mortal Kombat, but also on Injustice. So how is it for you? Are games more action? Are games more narrative? Are they a mix of the things?
It's a mix of the two. And the narrative part, as fun as fighting games are, and it's fun to say, easy to play, hard to master, some people competitively, especially online, they just get intimidated by it. I don't want to play, and they just want to play alone, or they want to, so we made the story mode where you can go through what feels like a superhero movie, and Mortal Kombat has it too, a deep story mode, and you can play it. It's 8-10 hours long, and you can have a lot of fun in a single player campaign. And we were the first ones. Some of the other fighting games are starting to do that now, but that was a big part, is story and characters and mechanic like that, so that just doing both of them really strong.
I think this complexity now it's on every medium, because you have Mortal Kombat in kind of all mediums in video games. You also had it on the movies. Yeah. So the franchise has to be different for every medium. How does that affect the everyday work? I imagine a lot.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. Is Mortal Kombat's been represented for so many systems, and there's been a TV show, a couple of movies, and all these other merchandising, and we really want to. I would describe it as there's a different angle that you can do it. There's a presentation. You can present Mortal Kombat as an animated TV show, present it as a video game, presented as a live action movie, and they all have their different kind of perspectives and voice and presentation like that. And thankfully, the people who've done them, for the most part, have created their own voice with the Mortal Kombat characters.
I would love to see on pen and paper Mortal Kombat, so I can live the world, choose my own fighter, make my own fighter.
Yeah. There was a novel too written on Mortal Kombat. I never read it though. I didn't at that time. I feel embarrassed to say that. But
he's the creator. He can do whatever he wants. Don't talk about it in the comments. Okay.
Yeah. And so, but it's nice. And I've read scripts and everything on Mortal Kombat. But it's great to see other people's stories based on it. So.
Would you do another movie?
If the right person was involved doing it. I'd hate it if, we waited. The second Mortal Kombat movie came out 1997, so that was over 20 years ago? Or was it 20 years ago? 07, 17? Yeah, 20 years ago. So it'd have to be really good, because it'd be a shame to do another one, and then if it didn't do, if it didn't live up to expectations,
But don't you think those kind of movies, they're so bad that they do the curve, and they become great? They're great. I love them.
Some of them are. Some of them are. Not all of them are.
Não subestime o poder do espírito humano.
You cannot be Scorpion. What other character would you choose to be?
Raiden? Yeah.
I would love to be Raiden as well. Yeah, and I like the hat. I like
the hat is very iconic. When you see it, you think of him. Yeah.
I have the hat. At home. Yeah. I was after I would send you a picture. My last question is just for me. It's for personal reasons. My brother was every time he was very good at mechanics, and he beat me every time. So I want to say to everybody who has been playing fighting games that the technique of pressing all the buttons at once is a very good technique, and you should try it. So let's do that.
Button mashing. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people be very successful button mashing, so that's a legitimate strategy.
See, brother. Gotcha. Ed Boon said that. Thank you so much. I'm sorry.